Test.
Good morning. Okay, sorry about that. We had a little technical issue. So we'll start over. Welcome to the Agricultural Preserve Advisory Committee meeting. Today is January 8th, and we are starting our meeting at 9:03 a.m., and today is January 8th. And first up, let's go ahead and see if there's, let's just go ahead and take roll call.
Okay, Stephanie Stark.
Here?
David Lackey.
Here.
Royce Larson.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
And Sergio.
Present.
And then we have a quorum.
Very good. And let's see if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on an item that is not listed on the agenda.
If you're online and wish to speak on an item not listed on the agenda, please raise your hand. We're not seeing any public comment.
Okay, and there's no one here in person, so we'll close public comment and move on to the, I'm going to go ahead and start with elections for the 2026 APAC chair and vice chair. In our previous meetings, we discussed the committee starting a new process of rotating the chair between the Agriculture Commissioner's Office and the Planning and Development Department. So let's go ahead and officially, I have been chair for some time, but let's have someone make a motion to elect, has to be probably not David or I, but to elect David Lackey as chair. One motion to elect David Lackey as chair of the committee and myself as vice chair as the committee. So we need someone other than David or I to make a motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Royce. Royce made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a second from Sergio. Any discussion?
Okay, so we'll go to roll call.
Okay.
Stephanie Stark.
Can I vote? Yeah. Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, very good. So we'll have David start as, is it chair of this meeting? Okay. Take it away, David.
Thank you, Stephanie. So we'll move on in our agenda. Next item is to consider the minutes from our December 11th meeting. So if there's any comments or questions or corrections, let us know. Good. Alex, you good? Royce, do you have any changes?
I do
or
not.
edits? Okay, thank you.
David, I did have a question on item number 1 on the action. The second action states that Lackey move, seconded by Stark, that the chairs send a notice to appear letter advising that due to the removal of the contract of the parcel from the contract, the owner will be required to obtain a replacement contract or to apply to determine eligibility. What does that mean? Apply to determine eligibility. So just obtain a replacement contract. What will? Yeah. So just strike the sentence after contract. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so not seeing any additional edits. I would make a motion that we approve the December 11th minutes as amended.
And then can we get a second?
I second the motion.
And then we'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Will abstain. I wasn't present at the meeting.
Okay. Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
Then vote carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Since we're in the minutes, I wanted to bring up an item. Teresa, in the folder, I added a PDF for the approved minutes from October. So wanted to let the committee know just in reviewing that because it relates to one of our letters that we're going to send out to property owners. I believe it's item number 3, the
Item number 5,
5.
the very, very last motion.
So this was the Wicked Wine Run special events, and the second, I guess, the last motion, it states to continue review of contract 96 AP005. So that listing of the contract, it was just a clerical error. It should have been the contract number that's in the heading for the agenda. It should be 84 AP013. So we wanted to make the committee aware that we noticed that clerical error, and then also just to confirm with council that we have the ability to correct that clerical error. We don't have to take a motion.
Yes, you do.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll do that, and then I'll work with you, Teresa. We'll maybe just for clarity, we'll show it as a strike through underline change, and in the heading have it revised approved minutes. Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to agenda management. Are there any requests for any of the items on today's agenda to either be continued to an alternate date? Teresa, have we received any requests?
We did not have any requests.
Okay. And then kind of looking at the topics for our agenda, I want to see if the committee would support moving our continued item number 1, the discussion on the utility scale solar, since that'll probably be more involved discussion, if we could move that to our last item, if you would be supporting of that.
I agree.
All right. Thank you,
agree
Bryce.
too.
So we'll plan on doing that. And I know the planning development staff are listening in, so they'll be able to accommodate that. So with that, let's move into our continued items on our standard agenda. So moving on to number 2 is Just Over There LLC. So this item was a continued item, last heard by APAC on October 9th. And on our folder, we also have a copy of the 60-day letter that was sent to the contract owner. This property is in the Carpinteria area, and as we recall, kind of the issues are that it was originally part of a larger contract, and one of the parcels had gotten their own contract, so that because the boundaries had changed, there was a need for these 2 APNs to obtain a replacement contract. But in terms of the challenges, it's a super prime contract, and so there was challenges with being able to meet some of the non-ag development envelope allowances. And the property owner which was helpful, that she was in attendance at the October meeting, and we were able to have a conversation about those issues that we saw. And so we had continued, after that October meeting, we had sent the 60-day letter and to agendize it for today's hearing for consideration of further action. And part of that was to also track to see whether or not there was an application for a replacement contract from the contract owner. And I'm not aware of, I haven't seen any application submitted by the contract owner. And I'm not sure if Sergio, just in the regular checking of things that were recorded documents, did we notice any owner initiated non-renewal recording?
No, not for this contract. Yeah. Nothing recorded.
And then this is Stephanie Stark, for disclosure, when this was mailed out, you could see the certified mail is also sent, return receipt requested. And we did not receive a return receipt from the owner. And I looked up the tracking number and it appeared that it was never delivered. So it's sitting in the post office somewhere. And I don't know if is anyone here today to represent.
So I think was it Ms. Burston was the
Yes.
owner?
Yeah, and I emailed Natalie Burston, but did not receive a response.
It looks like we do not have anyone online for this item.
Okay.
So Stephanie, maybe you could just so we sent the 60-day letter certified mail, and from what you received, it looks like it never was delivered to the owner.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's
Hmm.
an issue, I think, that we,
Yeah.
is that,
It's the
have
same
you
address.
encountered that before for other? certified mail?
Sometimes, yeah. I've had that happen before, but this one I had already mailed the other one, but to the same address.
Right.
The first letter.
Was it during the holidays? Maybe they were out.
No, it was sent October.
Oh.
I went through my files and I was like, we never got one back. And I looked it up on the tracking number and the certified receipt.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for due process, I mean, I
Yeah.
think we want to make sure that at least that
It got
the
delivered.
Postal Service attempted to deliver it. And
Yeah,
we
so-
need to, one, follow up to see what
Hmm.
were the situations. for
Yeah.
those, and then maybe attempt to resend.
Yeah, perhaps they moved, but we could trail this item and then
Can we,
look and see if there's maybe another, because this wasn't tied to a project of any kind. And did I
no,
remember?
no,
Yeah.
it was just a,
We could see if you have maybe the assessor's office has a phone number for this person.
we can check. Now, the question is, does notification need to be in the form of a physical USPS mail? Can you email it? I'm sure we have an email for the property owner.
Yeah, and I already emailed it to them, but I hadn't heard back.
Yeah.
But I think usually rely on US mail.
Right. So I can check and see if there's a phone number for them, but yeah, I agree with David. The suggestion would be to continue
Mhm.
try to mail the notice and avoid having
Yeah.
any issues with notification.
Yeah, and I think we could, essentially restart the 60-day letter process to get that sent, and then we can also send any other email or phone number notifications
Mhm.
concurrently with that effort
Yeah.
that we've tried all avenues.
Okay.
Um,
Are
so
we, are we able to send it to the actual property address?
Hmm.
Because I could see how it's listed on our mailing
We send
history.
it to the mailing address. That's
Mhm.
usually what we do. And it's usually the address that
it's
we-
tax record.
it's tax records. Yeah.
And can I just double check with you? Did you send it to an address in Venice?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the mailing address that we have. Mailing address. James
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Natalie.
Right.
Kind of the timing in order to get that going, I guess we probably want to make it continue to the April.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you'll continue to
Well, essentially, yeah, I mean, I would make a motion that we restart and that direct the chair to send a 60-day letter to the owner, and as well as other methods of contacting the owner regarding the consideration of ongoing eligibility, and that it'd be agendized for the April APAC meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item or public comment?
Okay, we'll do a motion. We do not have any public comment either, so.
Okay, great.
We'll Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Royce Larson,
Aye.
and then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our new items on the agenda. Item number 3 is the Heart B events. Tatiana Cruz is the planner and Eva Marrero is the agent for the owners. I see Eva is online and Tatiana, so maybe Tatiana, we'll start with you if you want to give any overview, and then Eva can add any additional information. Maybe Tatiana has stepped away, so maybe, why don't we shift over to you, Eva, and you can kind of give an overview of the project and any information you'd like to provide.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Eva Marrero. I'm with Flowers and Associates. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm one of the agents for this project, and we also have Gallery Macon from Flowers on, and the owners, Glenn and Jeff Hartman, available as well. After my presentation, they can field questions if needed. So we're coming to you today with an application for a zoning clearance for an agricultural enterprise ordinance project for small-scale special events. And the property in question is a 1,086 acre Ag 2 100 zoned parcel. Legal lot consisted of the two APNs, 137-270-031 and 137-280-017. And what you can see from your plans there is the area in a hatch mark rectangle. There you'll see a pond, sort of an ag reservoir there, and special events will be located in a small area surrounding that. And the second sheet will show you a closer up detail of the special events area. So everything in hatch mark there would be the premises for the small scale special events. And as allowed under the AEO, the special events would ultimately be allowing up to 200 guests per event, up to 12 event days per year. And if you want to scroll a little bit further down, I believe that's where you can see the parking area for the special events. So if you can scroll down a little bit. Great. So we've got a half-acre designated proposed parking area already pre-disturbed, and that would be the location for guests to park. And then from there would be 8 passenger Humvees that the owners already own that can transfer guests from the parking area to the special events area. It's less than a 5-minute turnaround drop-off time. For larger events, the owners would contract with a shuttle service from surrounding areas to accommodate that, and those shuttles would drop off folks directly to the special events area. And with that, I'll let you, I'll open up the floor for questions.
So a couple of, I guess, just clarifying points. So I guess the northern property of the 3 parcels, that's not under Ag Preserve contract, correct? And that's a different LLC, that's, I believe.
It is, that's right, yes. It's a different LLC. It's owned by Buds and Blooms, and the southern 2 APNs, which is its own legal parcel, those are owned by Heart B LLC. It's different ownership, and they're in their own separate Ag Preserve contract, which is, let's see here, 91 AP 006.
Right. And
For
so
the, if you
the
scroll
Hard
down
B
for the
contract, right? So that contract's currently a non-renewal.
Mhm.
And I don't believe the Buds and Blooms or Blossoms parcel is under contract, correct? The northern one?
I believe it's Not under contract, but I might ask Gallery Macon to confirm that.
Buds and Blooms
Or Jeff,
LLC is
thank
not
you.
under active contract. Hi,
Yeah.
guys.
Correct. And so one of the questions I had asked Tatiana, in terms of the premise, the definition of premises, both for purposes of uniform rules, but AEO, is that it was adjacent ownership or adjacent lands under the same ownership. And that was the question in terms of the two separate LLCs. The information that I have gotten from planning development is they did confirm that the underlying owner of both LLCs is the same. And so they were treating them both as the same ownership as far as for purposes of consideration of premises. So that I just want to pass that information on. And so
Okay.
Just to jump in there, I think because the parcels are owned by two different LLCs, they should be considered different entities and totally different parcels.
That would be my suggestion too, pending what if county council can confirm, because there are different LLCs, legal entities. Even if they're owned by the same owner, I think because the legal entities are different, they're considered different ownership.
That's our
There is also, if I could jump in as well, in the uniform rules, I looked up the definition of premises, and it does say the area of land under a single Williamson Act or farmland security zone contract as the first sentence. It then later says that the premises may comprise a single legal parcel or multiple contiguous legal parcels under the same ownership. But in that first part, my reading of that is, the Part B is within a single Williamson Act contract.
yeah, that's correct. I mean, we're not
clarify-
questioning that.
So the three parcels are comprising one legal lot? I'm sorry,
I wasn't
No.
getting into the legality of the lots. The
Okay.
two Part B parcels are under one contract. So yeah, we would consider that, contract 91 AP 006. The premises would include both of those two parcels. The kind of the wrinkle is that the parcel that's directly to the north of the contracted lands is the separate LLC, the Buds and Blossoms, and that's not under contract, and it's only 100 acres. And
it's not part of the legal lot.
well, it's not part of the contract, certainly. And just looking at from the AEO perspective for premises, the special events that are being requested are based on the size of the premises, and that has an effect on this because where the Buds and Blossom parcel is 100 acres, 100-acre parcel premises would only be allowed 50 attendees per event. But if you have over 320-acre premises, you could have up to 200 acres. So in this case, the application is requesting the premises include the Buds and Blossom separate LLC plus the two Part B properties that would, clearly exceed the 320 and meet, the eligibility for their request of 200 events. But if we consider them separate entities and ownerships, then I guess the other question I had, because the location of the reservoir was a mystery to me. I was trying to find it and I was looking farther on the Part B properties. But Eva, maybe you could clarify just the location of where the events are going to be by that reservoir. Is that on the Buds and Blossoms property or are they on the Part B?
No, they'll be on Part B. So it's clearer on the second sheet in the plan set. It's a little more zoomed in. The top visual there. And yeah, so it's hatched, and that is on the Part B property. And I just got a message from Gallery Macon. She said she's raised her hand and she is requesting to speak if possible. She's on the attendees list.
Please.
Yes,
Okay.
hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, so I just wanted to clarify, everything for our application is all on the Heart B parcel. There's nothing that is using B and B. So I don't know why we would bring in the B and B premise into the discussion.
Well, it was confusing to us because the description in the agenda includes the premises, includes the three parcels. And so I wasn't sure what the relationship was for the Buds and Blossoms process.
Okay, and I think maybe that was an error. It should only be the Heart B parcels.
Okay.
Correct.
Hey guys, this is Tatiana. Just to jump in. I'm the assigned planner, and we'll take a look at the inclusion of the Buds and Bloom parcel, but I don't believe that was initially an error. I think that was intentional, to include all adjacent parcels with the shared ownership for purposes of just determining, for example, number of attendees that would be allowed based on the size of the premises and setbacks and that sort of thing for planning purposes only, but was not meant to imply in any way that that was part of the contract.
Okay, I think it's becoming clearer, at least in my mind. So yeah, with the location of the reservoir on Heart B, and that's where the events are going to occur. So that makes it clearer that the events are going to be on the contracted land that we're going to be looking at, and that the acreages for the contract it doesn't result in an issue. So it would, as far as the 200 attendees that I had
Yes,
raised
that's correct.
earlier.
That was what was confusing me. Why the third parcel was included, and then from what I'm hearing, is because of the number of the guests that will be attending the event. But yeah, no, I agree that our committee can only speak to what's happening on the contract. And yeah, I can see that the event is clearly on contracted land. So if the number of attendees is not an issue, then I guess we can move on with the discussion of, allowing the events.
Okay. I had some other questions, but I want to see if the committee members have also other questions for the applicant or planner.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions regarding the ag that's on the property. Part of it is cut flowers, but I understand the other part is grazing. And if that is the case, the pond, the question is it fenced out from grazing permanently? And if that's the case, would the area that you would have the various events be fenced out permanently?
I'll let Jeff or
Yeah,
Gallery answer
I'll
that
jump in
question.
there to answer that. Yes, the pond is fenced off from our cattle grazing operation. The cattle grazing operation is in the southern 600 acres of the property. So we don't allow any livestock to come on the north side of that hill to come forward onto the where the pond area is.
Okay.
Jeff, this is Stephanie with the Ag Department. Could you could we switch to the other view and maybe just go over where the ag is on the premises? That would be helpful. The aerial view, yeah. Yeah. So is the green area there, is that the cut flowers?
I'm not
Yes,
seeing that
that's,
on my end.
Okay.
Yeah,
that is
the green
correct. That's
area
the
there is
Protea.
our Protea flowers.
Okay, so the cut, do you see it now? We just pulled it up. You can see
Correct, I see
kind
it.
of green polygons. So is that the totality of the production area, not the cattle grazing?
Yes, that's our flower grazing area.
Okay,
I mean, our flower production area. We grow
Okay.
Protea flowers.
and then whereabouts is the grazing land?
If you look on that southern parcel there, that other half to the south, that's where the majority of the grazing takes place. That's where all of the grazing takes place.
And is that a grazing operation? Is it unique to the premises, or do you do any cooperative grazing, or is it fenced property, or how many head of cattle?
It's all fenced property, and it depends on what the cowboy wants to bring in, and depending on the time of year.
There, just to follow up to clarify that they're cattle that the owner has, or you have a cattle lease agreement with a third party.
We do both.
Okay.
And is it like a cow calf operation or stockers, or what
No.
kind of?
10, 12 cows.
No,
It's 10,
could you
12
clarify?
cows.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Did you hear what he said?
Close it a little bit.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Could you repeat the details of the cattle operation? It got cut off a little bit.
It can be about 10 to 12 cows seasonally.
And then on that parcel, what's the water source for the cattle?
Mhm.
Are there troughs or ponds or springs that provide the water source?
All of those. We've got wells that pump to troughs. There's spring boxes, and there's some seasonal ponds.
Okay. And I know in the past, you had some cannabis location. Is that no longer part of the commercial ag commodities on the property?
Correct. Correct. There's no cannabis on the property anymore.
Okay.
And just going back to the water question, is it designated on the map where the wells are, or could you show us where those are located?
It should be designated on the map, but the wells are on the front of the property that are along the San Ynez River, and then they get pumped up.
They're not shown on the plans.
And the crops, are those also irrigated through the wells? Or is that a separate
Correct.
water? Okay.
The Protea are very light on water. We give them about a gallon a week in the summertime.
And I'll just maybe tee up
So
Sergio just on the annual Williamson X survey. I think you found some information.
I'm just wondering what's the agricultural reservoir for?
our ag reservoir is for irrigation and also for fire protection.
So do the wells fill the reservoir and then you water the crops through the reservoir?
Historically, it was used as a cattle reservoir, and we're using it for fire protection, and it was historically a seasonal reservoir.
Okay, thank you. And I kind of cut off Royce.
Oh, no,
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know if you had any other questions, Royce, about the
just
ag.
one other, the half of the property that is not grazed, and is the reason just too steep, too brushy? And what is it used for?
Yeah, if you look at the topo lines on that hillside, it's way too steep and brushy. You can't run cattle on it.
And so is it just for open space? Is that the purpose, or?
Can you clarify your question for me?
The property that is fenced off from grazing, which is too steep, is there any other activities on there, or is it simply just open space?
No, our Protea cut flower operation is on that ridge. So
And
if
the
you're
and the
looking at
rest
that
of it
map-
is open space.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, to answer your question, yes, we did get a questionnaire filled out last year, and it is reported to have about 9 acres of flowers on this questionnaire, and about 600 acres of grazed land on the property. That's about the extent of the information that was provided.
Okay. And maybe that's a good plug for marketing that the assessor's office will be shortly sending out the annual surveys to all the contract holders. It's an important process, and we want to try to encourage greater reporting. And so certainly for Heartbeat owners that just look for your mailbox, you should be receiving the survey shortly. And we thank you for your contributing and submitting the survey last year. And please do the same for this year. But
It's an annual
survey.
an annual survey. So yeah, thank you for cooperating. Thank you, David, for that. Mr. Chair, another thing is, in the past, when we have these types of projects and we're also looking at the continued eligibility. I remember applicants provide, they can provide photos of troughs or photos of the cows. I mean, not that we don't believe what's going on here. I mean, it's been reported, but is that something that we want to continue to request from applications like these, where we need to see maybe if there's a lease agreement, see evidence of the, like I said, the water being provided to the cattle, that sort of thing. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that has been and still is information that we request in the applications. I think it varies in terms of the completeness of some of the applications. And so I think that's an ongoing education thing that we want to probably re-engage, both with making sure the applications are complete, and also what information and what form they can provide it. So it's a continual commitment, and maybe we can take a look at, we haven't had our uniform rules training in a while, so maybe we can also reestablish that this year. For this property, which would qualify as non-prime, certainly they provided the verbal information and also in the reporting that they're doing the cattle operation.
Correct.
We've got evidence of at least some locations of water sources, both on that property and on the southern property. There's some look like ephemeral ponds that I noticed. But the as you know, the commercial production requirements on non-prime are pretty easy, low bar, and they just have to be doing something if they're not doing cattle, or they're doing the cattle plus the protea. And we've got information that shows the location and the reporting of the protea as well. So I think collectively, information has satisfied at least my concern about them meeting the commercial ag production requirements on the non-prime perspective.
Sure.
But certainly, we need that information a lot of times, and at some times, if it's something that we could continue the item if it was certainly a bigger issue, and so that is always an option if we needed to continue it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with your comments there.
Okay, thank you, Royce. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Teresa, are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, sorry, I'm just quickly thumbing through my uniform rules here to get to a correct section to reference.
2-11.
There you go. Sounds like you want to make a motion there, Sergio.
Okay, I'll make a motion to find the request for special events on contract 91-AP-006 to be consistent with the uniform rules, specifically 2-11, and that the contract is meets ongoing eligibility.
Very good. I'll second that.
And then we'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
Vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for the applicant team for attending and providing the information. And thank you, Tatiana, for being available.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Moving on in our agenda, the next item 4 is Gaviota Springs Ranch tentative parcel map. And Kevin De Los Santos is the planner and Heidi Jones is the agent. I'm not sure if either Kevin or Heidi is available.
This is Kevin, the planner. I can give an introduction on the project if you'd like.
Yes, please. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, no problem. So this project site, it's located out in Gaviota. The project is a request to split one existing legal lot into 2 lots. There is an existing single-family dwelling and some other accessory development on what would be proposed parcel 2. Other than that, there's no structural development proposed on this lot split. So this is actually my first time taking a subdivision lot split to APAC. So I'm just curious to see what the feedback is, but just a lot split. And I can answer any questions.
Okay, great. And I wasn't sure. Thank you, Kevin. And I wasn't sure if there's anybody from the applicant team.
I think Heidi Jones is the agent. She should be joining. She was just wrapping up another item. I think she's actually got her hand raised, so maybe she can speak to it.
Okay, so we'll hopefully.
Heidi, you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Yeah. Is there any additional information you would like to provide regarding the application?
No, not. It's a very straightforward request. So just happy to answer any questions you have or receive your comments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the one I think Kevin touched upon it, but just to confirm, any structural development on the existing parcel?
No proposed new structural development is a part of the lot split.
But is there any existing structures out there?
There are, yes. There's an existing residence. I don't know if we can scroll if you have the second sheet of this. I think it's a little blurry. So there's an existing residence. There was a previous, I believe it was a mobile home structure at some point on the property on one of the proposed parcels, but that it was damaged. So there is a building envelope in that same location, no new disturbance area. And that's the kind of existing condition.
Yeah, we'll see if we get a better.
It's all just ag uses and a residence.
Yeah, and sorry, just to add, the existing lot is a larger parcel. It's about 3,300 acres, and the split will create a 2,200 acre lot and an 1,100 acre lot, approximately.
And while we're pulling up the imagery, maybe you can talk a little bit about the ag on the property and then any water sources.
Yes, so there is just grazing activities right now and cattle. Water sources, I believe, are documented in our agenda request item, and I provided the water well records from the state. It's part of our application package, so hopefully you should have those, or Kevin has those. So 75 acres of the total is under contract. The combined envelope for that parcel is 0.9 acres, so not a lot of development envelope there. Both parcels would be grazing lands.
Heidi, I didn't see the water well information. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it in the packet. Is there a well on each property or proposed lot, I mean?
There is, yes. So there's a well completion report from 2023 that we can send over to, that was part of the package. And then there was it's like one of those well index cards that is not dated actually. But it was verified to be in place. So there is adequate well services.
Okay. Is the well designated on the map as well?
I don't recall, and I apologize. I wasn't, wasn't aware of this meeting, so I kind of jumped on last minute. I normally like to be a little more fresh. So let me just see if we have it noted on the map. There is a well site.
And then I have those well reports. I apologize.
Number 10. It's within an easement on sheet 1. Existing easement keynote 10, and that is, just trying to find these little numbers here. It's also shown on sheet 2. I'm just trying to put my finger on it. Existing water tank. Sorry, it's not highlighting on my screen here.
So I see 11 on the map, but I just not finding 10. Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, is that the other sheet? Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
And the grazing, is that are the two parcels currently grazed together? Or all the
Yes.
premises grazed together? Okay. And is it leased or owned by the landowner?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming it would be leased, but I can find out and confirm.
Read somewhere that it's leased to Williams Livestock Company.
Okay.
Oh, there
I
you
don't
go.
remember
Thank
where
you.
I saw that, but I think it was listed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're on the same map, is the existing dwelling on proposed lot 1 or proposed lot 2?
It is
challenged to
on
keep
proposed lot 2, parcel 2. It's shown best on sheet 2 of this map because this is just so large. You can see it there in the plan upper left. Existing residence. There's a pool and a fire turnaround. There you go. And that residential building envelope on parcel 1 is designated in the hatch just adjacent. That's where the prior residence was.
And did you calculate the acreage of the non-ag development envelope for the existing structure?
I don't recall if I did that or not. So what would you be looking for? The existing and
that's-
proposed non.
That it doesn't exceed 2 acres.
Okay. I will have to confirm. Get back to you.
And that would include the residents and any landscape areas, any areas that are used for the personal use and not agriculture.
Oh, yes. So for parcel 1, because that's the only one that has existing development, that is 0.9 acres. And then it would be parcel 2. And then parcel 1 is 0 because there's just ag roads.
Right. So for purpose of the parcel map, you've designated residential building envelope number 2. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that wouldn't really come into our play unless in the future they were going to either sell that off or build on that property. And the same with any turnouts or road widening
So that was
to build that envelope.
So I was going to ask about that. If there are plans to keep this under one contract, now that you will be having 2 legal lots, do you think there will be a request to have 2 ag preserves, or keep it under one? Maybe have sell one of them. Do you know?
I do not know. My understanding is there isn't an intention to sell. And my recollection is the ownership was formatted in a partnership, and it's just really to make this a cleaner partnership configuration of the parcels. They're not really intending to do any development, but they want to reserve the ability to build a residence on proposed parcel 1 in the future. And I do not know what the desire is in terms of the ag preserve contract, if they want to retain it as is or split it up and do new ones, but I'm happy to ask.
It's just that I guess the concern is if it eventually changes ownership, then that would be considered not consistent with uniform rules, because the contract has to be under one ownership. So if it was to have 2 different ownerships for the 2 legal lots, then just kind of keep in mind that we would be coming back and requesting to have the replacement contracts submitted and approved.
Understood. Thank you. I'll find out a little bit more from the owners of what their intention is.
No, but that's not before us today. I mean, that's, that's if it happens, but it's not part of our deliberation.
Right. But just while we're talking about it, just for your future planning, for your communication with disclosure, which we should have, just be aware that if these 2 end up selling, we would they'd each have to qualify for their own ag preserve contract to stay in the program.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm happy to inquire. I'll follow up with Kevin and he can send it on to your staff for informational purposes, if that's helpful.
Yeah, and if it's only 1 residence per premises, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So even if they wanted to stay in single ownership, you still couldn't build on that second prior residence under 1 contract.
Understood.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we'll have to have replacement contracts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
You have a question, Alice?
Same comment.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to raise, in the past when we've seen either lot line adjustments or split, particularly maps, but it could be for whatever purpose, estate purposes or other reasons. One of the things we would look at is, would each of these parcels have access to the water? Because later on they could be sold off. And so that would be a question, is there a shared water agreement? Or I think it would be something that we would want to have, that there'd be a shared water agreement for proposed parcel 1 and 2 to the existing water sources. Because if they were to be sold off separately and the water source is only available on one, then that really puts an issue with the ability to do further agriculture for the other parcel without the water source.
Understood.
Yeah, but and kind of going back to Kevin's comment again, I mean, that's kind of one of the issues when we see parcel maps and subdivisions. We're not really looking at the same issues that from a planning perspective would be. We're kind of looking at, well, they're not changing the external boundaries of the contract. It looks like all the issues related to ongoing eligibility still exist and they comply, but the water access always seemed to be an issue that we would want to assure that the resulting parcels do have access to the water source.
And as far as the why we originally had 3 assessor parcel numbers, I'm not sure. There's no TRA line that goes through those parcels. So anyway, I'm not sure if there will be a request to the assessor to have, get rid of the 3 parcels, maybe have 2, or just leave them the way they are. But anyway, that's just a comment as to the any TRA lines going through the parcels. There's none.
Okay.
Royce, do you have any other comments or questions?
The only comment, I think, the grazing is maybe likely the only thing that would qualify this for agriculture or for a contract. But even then, I think the majority of that property, the best I can tell from looking at a soils map and stuff and just kind of guessing, half of it or more isn't even possible to be grazed because it's too steep. It doesn't produce forage and those kinds of things. So in that split, and I think it's okay the way you're explaining that the grazing is going to be down low towards the 101. And I think there would be enough grazing on both parcels based on what I've seen with your map to still have grazing. So, and I don't know if we need to verify that or.
No, I mean, we're not necessarily having to make a determination because it still will be considered one contract, even if the lot split is approved. So we're just looking at the entirety of the area available for grazing, and it does have the water source. Any other comments or questions from committee members?
I just looked at through our records a bit. You raised that question about the EPNs, Sergio, and I think the entire property is a lot in a lot line adjustment recorded in 1994. And stretches all the way, from the easterly boundary to the Gaviota State Park as parcel 1. And I'm assuming that's what the proposed tentative map is trying to split. So looks like the 2 lots in the proposed tentative map might be just portion of that parcel A, and it's probably not subject to this meeting, but I'm guessing that there would be a designated remainder in as the remainder of that parcel. And I'm not sure how the contract is. I don't have that copy of the contract from 1975, the Ag Preserve contract, whether it covers or reflects that lot line adjustment from 1994. So those are all the questions for the tentative map review that probably our staff would raise. But yeah, that's probably also the answer of about those additional APNs.
Yeah, and that's I guess just a good general comment for people that might be listening. And so because this is a discretionary application, the surveyor it will be reviewing the application and providing comments on the map itself separately from what we're looking at today. So all right. Teresa, are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
So we do not have anyone in the audience and no one online, so no public comment.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just to add one more thing, final comment. I now can see where I got the lease information for the Williams livestock. It's from the Williamson Act questionnaire. So thank you for responding to the annual survey. Yeah, they are complying with this.
Yeah. And Heidi, if you joined late earlier, we made a plug for the timing that the assessor's office is about to send out the annual surveys to all of the contract owners, and we're encouraging all the owners to submit the information this year to increase our response rate. So if you could pass that on to the owners to be looking in their mailbox for the survey, that would be great.
You bet.
All right, so I will make a motion that the APAC find their request for tentative parcel map consistent with the uniform rules, contingent upon planner verification, that there's a condition to record a shared water agreement between proposed parcels 1 and parcel 2, and it could be verified by the planner, and that contract 75 AP026 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I will second.
Okay, we'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo.
Aye.
Stephanie Stark.
Aye.
David Lackey.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
And then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, for being available.
Sure.
And we'll continue with Kevin for the last item, Healy and Associates LLC. And I think there's also the agent is available. So maybe Kevin, if you could lead off to give an overview, and then the agent can provide any additional information.
Yeah, thanks. Hello again. So this project is a request to add an approximately 8,000 square foot, 8,600 square foot cannabis processing building. The project site has an existing outdoor cannabis cultivation operation permitted under previous land use entitlements. It's located in the Ag 2 zone west of Los Alamos downtown area. But yeah, the project is just to add this processing building to process on-site and some off-site, I think, harvested cannabis. And that's all for me. I'm available for questions.
And I'll chime in there. Hello, my name is Stacy O'Neill. I'm the compliance manager for the property. And as Kevin already mentioned, we have been licensed since 2018 for an outdoor cannabis grow at this location. And we are requesting, yes, approval to construct just a new prefabricated metal structure, which will be used to house our bucking equipment. So that is what we will be using to harvest the product and then shipping the product off the same day. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. Could you go over what the existing cultivated ag acreages are? And where they're
Yeah.
located on the property?
Definitely. So on this map here, the 40 acres, well, it's about 39 acres of cultivation area is shown in the pink, orange, and blue areas labeled area 1, 2, and 3. So we have the outdoor cultivation under hoops, which is spread throughout the property. And then as you see with the red dotted boxed area, that is the southwestmost portion of the property, farthest away from the highway. And so that is right next to our immature plant nursery area. And that is where we would like to construct the building.
Are the three areas cannabis cultivation? Area 1, 2, and 3?
That is correct.
Thank you. Do you have any other cultivation or any other ag? And the reason I'm asking is because this would be considered a prime contract, which means that you need at least 50% of the property in cultivation.
Maybe I can add to that, just Sergio, just that was a question that I actually had for Alex, is that do we know anything with 135 going through there, if this is actually, if the easement is part of, that would increase the acreage, or no? Or is it in fee?
Yeah, I don't know about this detail here, but typically the state would own in fee their right of way, but there are exceptions. I see here that the boundaries depicted looks like to the center of the State Highway 135, so it might be the case. I was looking for any maps to show it, but I don't see that except for a record survey. Yeah, let me see if is a more.
And I don't know, Stephanie, if you were on the committee. I mean, I remember when we were looking at this, when the cannabis applications were coming in, and obviously we would have gone through those same questions and looking at the requirements. So,
I'm just opening, Mr. Chair, I'm just opening a record of survey. It's a recent record of survey of the property, so it might give us acreage that's based on the survey.
okay.
I'm looking at an old aerial from the assessor's office. It looks like a little portion of the middle of the parcel is kind of flat, and it seems like maybe it was cultivated at some point. Or
Oh, you mean that what's pointed out as the compost area, the shared outdoor compost
no,
area?
just at the very middle, like at the middle of the parcel, like where you
Oh,
just south of those buildings that you see on what's showing on the screen.
yeah, the area that I'm looking at looks like it's fenced off. It might have been just like a pasture or something
Yeah,
when they were either doing cattle or running or for horses or something.
right. Yeah, yeah. It does seem like it was fenced off.
And then regarding the acreage, Mr. Chair, I do have a fairly recently recorded record survey done by Kenny Fargen that we recorded in 2020 that shows the extent of the property to the approximately to the center of State Highway, and the gross acreage stated and calculated there is 101.14 acres. So that brings us out of the prime.
That solves our problem.
Yeah.
Very good.
I was gonna say the same thing.
You're
right on the, you're right on the line. That was my question was, is this a prime or non-prime contract? So
Yeah.
looking at like we're considering it a non-prime.
correct, because of the gross acreage.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could ask a couple of questions.
Yes.
On the Google Earth map, and I don't know how recent that is, but it shows corrals and fencing and stuff. Is there a livestock operation in addition to the cannabis?
So we do have some cows that graze up on the hillside for like fire mitigation. So I would say that area is kind of shown in the bottom white portion up on the hillside. So yes, we do have cows throughout the property, periodically during the year.
And are those corrals used for that that grazing operation instead of personal use?
I would say we do not use the corrals for personal use. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of the corrals are kind of just were here historically before we purchased the property.
Okay.
So like one area, for example, we turned into a personal garden, if anything. So yeah, I'd say the extent of livestock would be the cattle that is up along the hillside. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Royce, I pulled up the Google Earth,
Okay.
and this is from May of last year. It really shows the property.
Yeah, and you can see those corrals and some other fencing, it looks like, and the property
Like
boundary.
they've got like a southern fencing bound, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, so where you had pointed where it says right under the 2,900, yep, right in that area, that is kind of where we have like a water trough and a little shade structure for them. And that's where we'll kind of lay out some hay sometimes. So I'd say the cows can safely be kept in that area, but they are often let out into the larger southernmost portion to, continue grazing.
okay. And then other question I have, not with grazing, but with the building, and I'm not sure I understand what is meant by processing. And is that, or do you harvest it and then dry it on site and those kinds of things, or is it harvested and moved off site?
That is a great question. So, in our case, for our operation, we harvest the wet cannabis product. Within the building, we will deconstruct the product off of the sticks so that we can palletize it and put it in boxes or freeze it, and then it's shipped off the same day. So, really, the only harvesting process that we will be doing on site is bucking. We will not be doing any drying, trimming, packaging, pre-rolls, or any other types.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the assessor, since our theme has been for the Williamson X survey. Do we have any records of the survey being submitted for this property?
Yes, they are complying with the questionnaire.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All
Yeah,
right.
and so yeah, this is one of the reasons I wanted to confirm about the cultivation, because it looks like Healy and Associates leased the entire property, and I wasn't sure how much they were cultivating, because the entire parcel is being leased by them. Healy and Associates are not the property owners. Property owner is DeJoria, I think, if I can pronounce that right.
The DeJoria Family Trust, that's correct.
Yeah, right.
So since Healy and Associates leases the entire property, does that include the cattle operation?
Oh, that's not, the cattle operation is not even listed as one of the uses on the property on the questionnaire.
So Stacy,
I was assuming that
is
it was,
the other cattle or other thing for grazing, is that under Healy and Associates ag operation, since you lease the entire property?
So we do lease the entire acreage listed under the APN. The cattle is not ours. It is I can't speak entirely on the cattle because I'm not totally in that loop, but they are not our cows. So I don't know if we lease them or we just allow another neighboring, party to have their cows kept on our property to graze, and then it also benefits us for the fire mitigation. So I don't know if that answers your question entirely, but
Yeah, I guess was whether the lease agreement would have been with Healy and Associates or with the underlying property owner. But I guess maybe that's even a question. Another question for Sergio is that on the reporting for the survey, when a lessee is the main agriculturalist on the property, are they the reporting, or still does the landowner? It may get sent to the landowner, and do they fill out the information, or does the lessee fill out the information?
So for this type of reporting, the assessor doesn't really care who reports, as long as they're reporting what the uses are on the property. In this case, this reporting is being done by a Wesley Kern. I'm not sure if he is with Healy or with the owner. It doesn't.
I
Well,
would
the
say
owner is
he's both.
DeJoria.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah, it has to be. Right. But yeah, no, we don't. We don't really. The assessor doesn't really care who reports.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other comments or questions from committee members?
I don't.
Okay, thank you, Royce. Teresa, do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item?
So we do not have anyone in the audience or anyone online, so no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So I will make a motion that we find the request for construction of a new cannabis processing building consistent with the uniform rules, including uniform rule 2-2E. Thank you, Stephanie. And that we find that contract 73 AP 009 meets ongoing eligibility requirements.
I'll second.
Then we'll go to roll call. Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Royce Larson,
Aye.
and then vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Stacy.
Right. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
All right, so now we'll return back to continued item number 1, or does the committee need a break, or we're good to go? All right.
Could we have just a couple minute break?
Yeah, why don't we take like a 4-minute break?
Okay.
Or 5-minute break?
Sounds
We'll
good.
come back
Thanks.
at 10:27.
Sure. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. We're going to reconvene the January 8th APAC meeting, and we're going back to continued item number 1, which is draft uniform rules amendments to allow for utility scale solar. This item was last at our committee on December 11th, and planning development staff provided an overview of the proposed utility scale solar ordinance amendments and provided some information on the information that was in the environmental impact report, as well as we discussed both refamiliarized ourselves with the alternative that APAC had recommended to be evaluated in the EIR, and a copy of that is in the folder from our minutes of September 12th, 2024. Also in our folder available for the public and the committee, we included some information on the solar use easements from the state and what that involves. And then we have 2 versions of the draft uniform rule amendments. One is the draft that's from the staff, and it was the project description for the EIR. And then at the last meeting, the committee nominated a subcommittee, both of Stephanie Stark and myself, to review the proposed amendments and provide at least a draft version of what might constitute the APAC's recommended amendments that we could take a look at today. And so that's also included in our folder. And that one is titled APAC Draft Uniform Rule Amendments. And I'll turn over to my co-subcommittee person, Stephanie Stark, if you have any other general comments on sort of the review. We met, I think, twice over the break to discuss the proposed amendments and made some adjustments and changes. And so at least the deliberations that we had looked at are reflected in the kind of the strike through underlying changes, primarily highlighted in with yellow highlight that are in the APAC draft version. And so we'll walk you through those, but I want to just provide Stephanie an opportunity to provide any additional high-level comments.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you for planning for coming again to review this project with us. Yeah, David and I met a couple of times, and we also just looked through it. And one of the things that we were looking at was sort of, I think the 2 main things. One was the agrivoltaics portion and concept in the proposed changes to the uniform rules involving this project. We have there's been some research done on agrivoltaics, but it was just some discussion that David and I had about maybe considering on like one of the uniform rules aspects we had changed was to not allow any agrivoltaics as part of the production agriculture acreage for qualifying for eligibility, to maintain ongoing eligibility. But just in discussions with our department and looking at the broader view of agriculture and how it does change over time, just some consideration that the committee might consider maybe having more of a general statement in the uniform rules that might allow it on a case-by-case basis. And I recall at our last meeting, Royce had also expressed some experience he had with some successful agrivoltaic operations. So that was kind of one of the main points that we discussed in our subcommittee meeting. And I was wondering.
Maybe I'll just interrupt you there, and
yeah,
we can quickly go to that. So maybe Teresa, if you could please maybe go to page 16.
Yeah, 1-2.3. right there. Yep.
This was in our commercial ag production requirements. And so what's shown in sort of the highlighted yellow and blue is the new suggested language, kind of just paraphrasing what Stephanie had in the conversation we had with the Ag Commissioner's office, is that still having it flexible enough that you could look at agrivoltaics as potentially part of meeting the commercial ag production requirements on a case-by-case basis. And so we didn't want to close that opportunity off entirely. And so that was our suggested addition that we would add.
And I was curious if in any of the research so far or any of the background work that planning had done, had you found any good resources that might indicate that agrivoltaics, and again, the use of as defined in the uniform rules, which is the amount of agriculture that's occurring under the panels. Have you found any good places for that might indicate, or any input from the ag community on the concept of agriculture or what is it, agrivoltaics?
We didn't necessarily reach out to members of the ag community on it. I mean, there is certainly research out there and case studies of where it has been done with some success, but I think it's still fairly new concept and evolving. And I do think it's, going to be somewhat case by case in terms of what types of ag, how the solar is designed and what type of ag can be accommodated on it. I don't think it's like the kind of situation where it's an absolute yes, nor is it an absolute no. I do think it's going to depend on sort of what the proposal is and whether or not can be a demonstrated continuation of the ag.
Yeah, and just that might be something to just see if the Ag Advisory Committee, just a thought, if they have any input into that, because it does play into this program, the Ag Preserve program. So it's just a thought. So we thought we'd put some flexibility in there. Want to kick it back to the committee and see what the thoughts are on that.
Yeah,
change in language.
Maybe that kind of be kind of our general approach. We'll kind of highlight some areas where we've had some suggestions and get kind of a straw question, comments, or generally straw vote on kind of up or down or potential changes. So any suggested comments or questions or this proposal from committee members?
Yeah, I was reading the first word in the yellow highlighted data. It kind of does not sound right as far as defining. So perhaps using word any we should probably do carefully, or proposed agrivoltaic use or something like that. Probably.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Perhaps would.
Or you suggest we could just strike data from and just start it with agrivoltaic use
would work better, or
yeah. I mean, I think Stephanie's suggestion maybe just starting with agrivoltaic use of the land.
Or
we'll just
okay. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we had when we were looking at this concept, one of the sources we originally looked at was when the cannabis ordinance was coming through, and we had similar language with respect of how cannabis could be treated for commercial ag production requirements. So it was continuing, that language. But yeah, that's.
I mean, might be appropriate. I just don't understand what data.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we can change that.
That would be my comment as well. I think what it's meant here is that we're not providing the data. The data is being provided by somebody whoever's requesting to have agrivoltaics on their property. Correct? Am I? So then maybe say data provided. The committee is gonna look at that data that is being provided on a case-by-case basis and then go from there?
I think
Is that,
that's an example of, well, what individuals will consider what the data would be. But you're right, it could be a variety of information that is provided that supports that this is a real ag use that could be compatible. It could be acreages that they're proposing and how those acreages align with what they would need to meet for their uniform rural requirements. So yeah, I think maybe to avoid that confusion once we're all off the committee and people are still looking at the language, I think Stephanie's original suggestion might be cleaner just to start with agrivoltaic use and eliminate the data.
I agree.
Okay.
And one of the, well, maybe it's not the right place. So I've seen a couple of things that, to me, if it was brought to me as a committee member, I'd say, yes, that is agriculture. One example is the Topaz Solar Farm, which is a 3,000 acre solar farm in the Carrizo Plains, where they use the sheep to do the vegetation control and the weed control for fire prevention. And they've increased the number of sheep they feed, as well as the sheep then give the service of providing the fire risk reduction. But another one that I've seen is for cattle, and they put up small structures that are very large, poles are very high, I should say, and high enough that the cows go underneath them, and they're smaller but spread out in other places. And what these structures do, they have the solar panels on the top, but they provide shade for the cattle. And I don't know if, if we're getting down to where somebody puts in a bunch of those throughout their ranch versus a contiguous area that they have solar panels, and if that matters.
Yeah, and I think Royce, that kind of highlights, it's sort of an emerging use and seeing what types of ag could be best suited for those. And those are, I think, good initial examples that you pointed out. And so I think with this language here, at least for this section, our hope was at least we keep that flexibility. We're not cutting it off, that it's not categorically compatible. And so it keeps that open as more information can be provided on a case-by-case basis to support the use of agrivoltaics. Maybe is that helpful?
Yes,
Royce?
I like that. So
let's jump to the main section of 2-9 because I think that's where a lot of the kind of decision points that want to talk. I think that is page 34. And just in this version, Teresa, because it's not showing the track changes of, can you go to the view to show all changes? Or under review? Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to open it up on my, if we can.
While we're, waiting for that to be pulled up, one other question I had was regarding agrivoltaics, or even just looking at the language in this next section we're going to be talking about in the uniform rules. Was there any review of other county uniform rules or other county ag preserve programs across the state? Have they, approved anything similar to this, or did they make any changes to their guidelines to as far as like how it interfaces with agriculture or their ag preserve programs? Did you find any kind of other helpful information, I guess?
So I know we looked around other jurisdictions for their treatment of solar on ag land. And my recollection is that we found a pretty big range. Some more restrictive, some less restrictive. So I don't know that we necessarily honed in on any clear trend. But since uniform rules and regulation of the ag preserve program is so localized,
yeah,
every county or city kind of handles it a bit differently. So
I was thinking specifically like San Luis, or I was curious what their if they've had any, because your voice was mentioning that Topaz solar project that they had in San Luis County or Ventura, or those are kind of the main counties.
Ventura has not developed I think they're actually initiating work on like a set of solar utility scale solar amendments, but they haven't developed, they don't have anything in place yet.
Okay.
And I don't recall where San Luis is at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So in section 2-9, where the majority of the proposed amendments are going to be, the first set of sections in section B, the existing language kind of speaks to that ag accessory structures, and it gives examples of windmills or solar panels used for protection of frost protection, water generation for on-site agriculture deemed compatible uses. And so one of the things we wanted to make clear in in the track change language that we added was just to make clear that using the terminology that the energy systems and facilities to support on-site agriculture is deemed compatible if the following are met, and some basic things that the acreage of those systems is based on the need to support the on-site agriculture. So kind of looking at the scale, and then also that in terms of siting to maximize and preserve productive agricultural land, that are similar themes that we've had for other compatible uses. So we thought with these additions, it would expressly state that in this framework, the solar energy facility systems that support on-site agriculture needs can be found to be a compatible use. So that's sort of the proposed changes for B. For C, we started off with just the changes that aren't highlighted in yellow, but that are track change or new underlying text, are starting with the staff proposed changes for utility scale solar. And the existing, I guess, one of the things that we had considered, the existing first paragraph of C speaks to energy production structures such as wind energy conversion systems and solar. It previously said panels. So it's combining both solar and wind, and whether or not there was a need to separate sort of commercial wind energy projects that are primarily for offsite transmission versus solar. And I think where we landed is just to keep the existing language, because it later just goes on to say that the APAC would review it pursuant to the compatibility guidelines on a case-by-case basis. And that's sort of what we did for the Lompoc Wind Energy Project. It didn't raise an issue. There really wasn't a need to have sort of subset requirements that we didn't have the ability to look at already. So that was at least our thought for the subcommittee, was just we would just keep that, the wind energy portion, just as it is in the context of the first paragraph for C, and then the suggested additions for C1, we would start with to look at for the solar energy facilities for off-site use. And as we talked about these previously, I think we concurred that under C1A, that these systems would not be compatible on super prime lands. The two kind of issues that still were, that we wanted to get input and come to at least some position on, were whether or not the systems would be compatible on prime lands or non-prime lands. And also within those contexts, there were differences between the allowances and size limitations. So as recall, for prime land, the staff recommendation was that it would be allowed on 10% of the premises, or 10 acres, whichever is less, and you'd have to start with a minimum premises size of 40 acres. The alternative in the EIR that APAC had originally recommended to be evaluated did not consider these systems compatible on prime designated land. So that was at least one of the differences. And then on non-prime, the differences between the staff recommendation and the original APAC alternative were based on sort of the overall allowances. The staff recommendation was allowing 15% versus 10% for the APAC alternative, and then sort of the starting point for the premises. And I think we talked about that in our subcommittee quite a bit. The staff recommendation would be a non-prime starting at 100-acre premises, and the EIR alternative was that the non-prime contract, you'd have to at least have a minimum of 500 acres for the premises. And we had some initial discussion on, and maybe we could talk about the non-prime first, because it might be easier to resolve. One of the considerations for a higher starting point, at least for the original EIR alternative recommended by APAC, was that the smaller contracted premises are often would have less forage and less available area to sustain somewhat, I'm not saying we make a determination of a viable grazing operation, but in terms of just if you're then going to take out 10% of that smaller contracted premises, it puts even additional burden on the available forage that might be available for that somewhat marginal cattle grazing operation. And so the suggestion was, well, perhaps if we have raise the floor and have it higher, it doesn't have to necessarily be 500, but is there some value of having a higher floor minimum so that it helps to balance, even if you're going to take some land out. And this is a case where there would not be any agrivoltaics. It may just be a footprint, whether it's 15% or 10%, that would be for the solar. The remaining area available for grazing, it may still be somewhat more viable. And so that was sort of the concept there. One of the questions, and I didn't have time to put it in the box, but Stephanie had kind of asked, going back to, if you had 100-acre minimum starting point for the premises, well, how many contracts are between these different ranges? And so we had our GIS person kind of do some research of how many contracts we had and had to break it out between 100 acres and 199 acres. So we have 464 contracts in that range, between 200 acres and 299 acres. There's 96 contracts for 300 to 399, 72 contracts. 400 acres to 499 acres, there's 40 contracts, and then there's 190 contracts that are greater than 500 acres. So that was sort of a surprising number. At least there's a big concentration of the ag preserve contracts that are actually between 100 acres and 199 acres. And I know that Stephanie had raised, those, if you viewed it from the ongoing viability of the ag operation on these, there's still challenges for those smaller contracts. And so if they have the opportunity to do some solar, that could help facilitate the overall ag operation. And so I thought that was a good point to raise, that in terms of potentially having a lower starting point as a minimum, if we wanted to look at that at least it would provide an opportunity, and we still would be able to have an opportunity to look at the ongoing or the commercial ag production requirements, because they would still need to meet those regardless. So I wanted to just provide a little bit more information of the non-prime, and let everyone weigh in. And I know, Royce, you have had a lot of comments previously, and would like to hear your comments as well and take on how we could find these compatible on non-prime contracts.
Yeah, thank you. And your thoughts about the 100 to 200 acre parcels that are under contract. It's just running through my mind. What about a place like Gaviota down there on all those parcels that are 100-acre parcels? And if they all got together and wanted a big solar field, and you had you stretched out a bunch on each one of them, would that be a nightmare, or would that be compatible? Would that be?
You mean Hollister Ranch?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know. I guess I can see some big advantages and some headaches coming. But I don't have.
Yeah, and even all of these have differences in topography that, they may have limited areas that limit, because that are not suitable for placing some of these solar infrastructure on. And so, there, at least with the proposals, there are percentage limits. So even in not envisioning that these would be on Hollister Ranch, but even those 100-acre parcels, under these considerations, that would either be limited to 10 acres or 15 acres of the footprint. And so, but yeah, those are all valid points, that to take into consideration that I guess are more evident on the smaller available contract premises.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, a quick question. I probably missed it. Probably was just went over my head. So this is a compatible use, not a qualifying use.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just was having a little senior moment.
It's compatible, but what we were talking about is if they use, they would still need to have agriculture on the property, production agriculture, to qualify them.
Correct.
To stay in the program.
Meaning somebody who needs to meet 50% of commercial ag,
right?
This doesn't go into that 50%, correct? Is that?
No. What we were saying originally, the first topic we had was that we would look at that as an ongoing, as a case-by-case basis.
So then you're saying it's a we would look at it as a qualifying?
Yeah, what the language has said in what we were talking about very beginning of this endeavor.
And also but just to jump ahead further down in section 2-9, we added this number 3 here just to further emphasize that, those allowances above, either on prime or non-prime, are maximums and applied first, demonstrating compliance with Rule 1-23 as commercial production. So you still need to demonstrate compliance with those, and then those are maximums. And if you can't meet your commercial production, you may have to have a smaller footprint for your solar facility or something.
And that 500 acres, one of the reasons I was curious about the number of how the breakout was for all the contracts across the county was so based on what we had received from the planning department and looking at the different contracts. So there's 190 500 acres or greater. So only 190 contract owners could be even eligible for doing the utility scale solar on their property. Take advantage of that. So that just doesn't seem like that many. So what I was looking at was, could we lower that 500 acres premises size to something just smaller? I understand the reasoning behind it. I'm just looking at, opening that up a little bit more if we could.
I would also just point out that there's a lot of forces that factor into like where these facilities would get located from practical and logistical standpoints. They're likely going to be near areas where there's already like some sort of distribution, power distribution. So they're not running lines for miles and miles to try to tie into the grid. So there's a lot of other forces at play that will kind of guide where we might see these pop up there. Yeah, I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that you'd see Hollister Ranch covered in solar panels, just because the ability to get out there and connect those to the grid and
so rural
things like that would be pretty unlikely. So I think there's various things that are all placing limitations and constraints where we might actually see these come in.
And the other thing, and we'd have to dig deeper in the data, but looking at those, 464 contracts between 100 acres and 199 acres in size, I would guess that a good percentage of those also are in cultivated agriculture or vineyards, because we have a lot of, even though technically by the size they fall into the uniform rules category of non-prime, the commercial ag that they're doing is often cultivated agriculture or vineyards. And so those types of ag use may be less likely, their desire is, well, certainly if it's cultivated agriculture, to plant corner to corner and maximize their production areas. And so I wouldn't think that all of those contracts would be grazing contracts. I guess was the point. And I agree. I think, the 500 acres in the alternative was a starting point. I certainly think that can come down. I don't know to what point would we have recommendations for. And just on the uniform rule side, as we all know, it's using the minimum of 100 acres as an example, and being able to take out additional 15 acres or 15%. So then you've got, even if it was just a flat grazed area, we don't have detail in what constitutes a viable cattle operation, other than, do you have water? Are you doing, do you have fencing, and are you doing something? And you might be able to have one or two, a cow calf or something. It'd be a very minimal cattle operation, but you potentially are committing 15 acres or footprint of something to a non-agricultural use. And so it's the balancing of how, since it's, we're looking at this as a compatible use, that the agriculture still is the principal primary use of the property. it just gets into a gray area, so.
If I could ask too, on staff, was there a reason why for up there on number 2, why you chose the 100 acres? Is this that was the cutoff for non-prime contract size?
Yeah, just that, that's basically the baseline acreage for non-prime contract,
Yeah.
100 acres.
And the 10% or the 15% that you'd proposed, did that come from, where did that come from?
I mean, it's no like magic number really. It was sort of came from, is 10% right? Is 15% right? Is 30% right? And just kind of looking around and seeing, what are the goals of the program, which are to open up these opportunities while still preserving agriculture. So 15% felt reasonable and felt right, but with knowing again that it doesn't mean that the site doesn't need to continue to meet its production requirements or its agricultural viability, demonstrate that. So there's always that backstop to make sure that, they might be generally entitled to 15%, but if they can't demonstrate ongoing viability of the remaining acreage, then they wouldn't be able to get approval by the under uniform rule compliance. And then there's also, the issue of if that 15%, say some of it was a agrivoltaic type of scenario that would continue to allow, for example, foraging or grazing underneath the panels, then that's a different setup than 15% that is fenced off and unavailable for the continued ag operation. So again, kind of building in some flexibility.
Thank you.
If I could just add, we're talking about bringing that down, and if, different from the vineyards and everything, but as far as a grazing operation, I'll just mention, and maybe you know this, but San Luis County changed their non-prime lands to 350 acres if it was grazing, simply because they said that's at least that much is needed to be a viable operation. So if they're grandfathered in, I think they can be less up there, but any new ones, their minimum is 350 acres.
Is that in their, is that a planning document or is that in their
The uniform rule.
ag preserve?
Yeah.
Other
ag
uniform
preserve.
rules.
Yeah.
That's a helpful piece of information. And maybe we should just consider that too. Thank you, Royce.
Sergio, any thoughts?
No, I was asking about, whether it was the compatible versus the qualifying use that was answered. I guess my only other comment was Royce was mentioning sheep grazing or foraging. And I think my only question would be, would that be considered agriculture? Like, do we use sheep grazing as agriculture? Did they provide food, fiber, whatever?
You're talking about for the topaz case, or just in general for?
In general, right. I was just thinking about that. Other than that,
there is quite a sheep production in the state. Mostly over in the valley though, or up towards Sacramento area. Not so much along the coast. but it is viable and it is real. And I'll just say in the case, I don't know how it would work in the case of Topaz, if that was an example. And I say that because they bring the sheep in to eliminate or reduce the fire risk for the weeds and stuff. They don't pay, or the sheepman, they don't pay to have their sheep graze there. They're just doing it to reduce the fire risk. So in that case, it wouldn't be any remuneration. It'd just be they come and do their thing and graze and then leave. So I don't know how that would fit in a uniform role.
Technically, what you're saying is just weed control.
Exactly.
What they're being used for.
But they don't have to pay Topaz anything, and Topaz doesn't pay the sheep people anything. They just come and do their thing and get the feed, but there's no money transferred. So there's not like, I don't know if there'd be a lease or anything. It'd just be they come and do it.
Yeah, and as kind of Royce was alluding, I mean, just on the committee, I can't recall a situation where we've seen like an active either goat or sheep grazing operation. So it's sort of a different commodity. And yeah, I think what we would, at least in the near term, probably just see is it's functioning as a utility. Those animals are a utility on the property, but not necessarily part of the commercial ag production side.
I just want to clarify something to make sure we're all on the same page. So if a landowner comes in, they have a prime contract, and so it's over 100 acres, and they are proposing, let's say for the case of it's 500 acres, so they can apply for this non-prime contract, and they don't have any cattle, but they're proposing agrivoltaics in and around sheep, let's say, in and around where these panels are going to be proposed. Would we consider that as production agriculture? Like, would we consider that they're maintaining on, let's say they're already in the program for whatever reason? Would we consider that maintaining ongoing eligibility? Because they don't have to have a minimum number of acres under non-prime.
You're saying that would be their only.
Yeah.
It would be their only activity.
Right.
Bringing in the sheep.
Yes.
They feed.
Mm-hmm.
They go home.
Yeah. And they actually are proposing to us that this is a commercial. It's not just for fire suppression.
I mean, I don't know.
We'd want to. I think if they're trying to equate it like a cattle lease, then we'd want to see what's the lease agreement.
Yeah.
And is it a real commercial venture between the two parties?
That's our case by case. I'm just putting.
We still would have, with the other language that we're proposing, we would have that flexibility.
Okay. Royce, any thoughts on that?
I agree that remuneration would be a part of it, not just not just come, bring your sheep, graze my weeds, and then leave. Nobody pays anybody, but rather, there needs to be, I think, a commercial value to it.
Yep. Okay, thank you. I just for entertaining that. I just want to make sure we're saying the same thing. I agree. And regarding the number 2 for the 500 acres, I was going to ask, could we propose to do 300 acres? Is that a reasonable number to you? Decrease from 5 to 3? And I was literally curious, something you said, Alex, you had mentioned that there are other constraints with putting these solar, utility scale solar. It was and I'd heard this when the Cuyama Solar project was going through it. It's limited to was it the substations? Is that the language you use, that infrastructure needed to get the energy to where it needs to go.
Yeah, for those that are like trying to generate electricity for the purposes of
Offsite.
offsite, adding it to the grid,
Yeah.
there are infrastructure limitations
Okay.
in terms of where are they going to be able to connect. So it would require being proximate to existing substations or existing transmission lines where they could tap in. Otherwise, you have to go through the cost and expense of sort of creating those connections, which if you're really remote from where the existing lines are, that can be a considerable challenge to try to build that infrastructure. So there are currently infrastructure limitations that will continue to play a role in terms of how much of this we actually see. But, you know, the idea is we're kind of setting the table for this to occur in the hopes and anticipation that those current infrastructure limitations may change over time or improve over
Expand.
time.
I'm just, when you said that, I thought to myself, is there like a map or anything that shows where those substations are? That I just wonder how it might intersect with the, you know, the ag lands that are under contract and maybe.
Yeah, I believe in our EIR, maybe we can pull it up, but we have a map showing not like all the substation, but we have a map showing like the existing main distribution transmission level distribution lines within the county. And there's really only a few, and maybe Matt can try to look that up, and we can.
I was just bringing that up because maybe we're worrying about something that maybe isn't, like you had said, like that isn't too likely about the scenario with Hollister Ranch. I just was wondering, maybe these really large acreages or these really small acreages are going to be more than likely the larger ones aren't even going to be nearby. So they maybe another reason to consider changing the acreage downward a little bit. Does that make sense? Where I'm coming from? Okay.
And you know, my concern looking at F1 and 2, that by holding it up to higher acreage, we kind of disadvantage we create that gap of like between the prime and non-prime contracts that I would think that in certain cases, a non-prime, let's say 100-acre contract would much easier qualify for basically electric production, energy production, and be more viable than a 50-acre prime land contract, for example. And then we are, if I'm reading this right, we are leaving opportunity for prime land to be found as compatible use, while let's say for 150-acre non-prime land, it's non-compatible. So that's why I kind of like the Alex's idea from the original draft to keep it at 100 acres and kind of limit the acreage by just playing with these numbers, percentages, and minimum.
So are you saying that in with the non-prime, it almost seems like an undue burden that to raise it so high? Is that what you're saying?
It just does not provide. I guess, yeah, it just don't provide the same.
Harder to get a solar panel or utility scale solar on non-prime than prime.
The owners in that group below 500 or below 300 would be wondering why is it the case?
Yeah, I see you're saying.
So what the proposed draft of 100 acres provided to keep that continuity. If we didn't have prime to qualify as compatible use, we probably could set that number up to 500, and it would make sense. But leaving this gap is kind of that does not make sense to me.
And yeah, just to clarify, so for number one, that's just reflecting the staff's recommendation. We haven't come to a position on that yet, but Yeah, I see your point is that if that was allowed and then
Yeah.
a higher non-prime, then there's a gap where it's just not compatible. I mean, it makes sense just on the logic of allowing a use, but if you just come at it differently, which I think we were trying to do with these higher starting minimums, that it's more challenging for the non-prime grazing to be viable on smaller acreages.
Yep.
Just based on without any other uses on the property. And then if you start taking land out of potential forage on the smaller, it even potentially has a greater burden on the principal, what's supposed to be the principal use is the agricultural use. For the ag preserve program in the state, there's some uses that are just not compatible. And what this conversation is trying to do is saying under what circumstances could solar facilities be compatible under prime land and under non-prime conditions. And so that's kind of the focus, I think, for our committee is the underlying ag on those non-primes still going to be, viable or not viable, I don't want to say, but it's still going to be available to be the principal use and not have detrimental effects from this use. I don't know if flip-flopping 15 to 10%, that makes any difference. I'm not wed to 10%. I mean, if we went with 15, it's marginal differences, so,
It's 10 and 10, it seems easier to keep it 10 and 10.
either way, yeah, and then, certainly.
And I think if proposing 300 there instead of 500, I think that gives more of a grazing lands an opportunity to utilize the scales, theoretically, this type of endeavor. Although what we're talking about earlier, the infrastructure isn't there, maybe it's a folly, I don't know, but that's just something that maybe is something that planning could look at as the project continues. As if that comes up in future discussions, but that's, if we lowered, the 500 to 300, would open it up for more potential contract holders to utilize this benefit. And also, I like the idea of potentially having the agrivoltaics. That's a possibility because it's always grazing land is a tough ag to keep viable. We know that, and I just give them all the flexibility they could have to
Right.
maintain viability on their property. But yeah, the 10 or 15, I don't want to quabble about that too much. We could keep it at both 10. I'm fine with that.
What I think I heard is at least potentially either go with staff's 100 or 300. And
Yeah.
I kind of want to see where we may.
Yeah, I could do either
moving
one.
forward. Any thoughts? I know, Alex, you had kind of the logic of 100
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
keeping
would
that
be
flexible.
continuation of the.
Right.
I would be fine with 100. That would actually be good in my head as well.
Sergio, Royce.
No,
I'm not an economist, but as Stephanie addressed, it's really hard to have a viability with ranching on these smaller acreages. And that's why San Luis went to 350 acres. But
Mhm.
if they can't make some money some other way than just their cattle, how many contracts are being sold and land being sold and changed and stuff? And I don't know the answer to that, but if we're forcing them to get rid of their land because they can't make even the taxes on it or something, I think the flexibility, so I would vote for the 100 acres to give them the maximum potential flexibility.
Yep.
yeah, I agree with what you guys are suggesting.
I can't make track changes, it looks like, at this version.
You have to click on the
Edit.
enable.
Yeah, I had something over
So with that, we would just concur with staff's recommendation with the caveat of that 15, we would just make it 10.
We did find a map in the EIR of the existing distribution lines, if you would like to see that.
That would be great.
Again, that's just kind of shows the current picture.
Uh-huh.
And it's not to say that won't change in the future as efforts continue statewide to improve the grid, but we're gonna see if we can pull that up. We're gonna emails that to you.
Yeah. 10 and 100 on that.
Mm-hmm. 10 and 100.
Oh, no, sorry, they had 15.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Okay, so you wanted the same 10. Do the prime. That's then we can touch upon quickly the other one. Matt, did you want to add any context to this, or Alex, on this map in terms of the corridors and? Those are scenic corridors. Okay. Okay. So why don't we go back? Let me see if I have I can share again. We'll go to our conversation on prime land.
We're going back to the document here while planning pulls up the other map they were looking for that discusses the infrastructure for utility scale solar. So we're jumping back to the language we were looking at a moment ago, but we're looking at the prime land.
Right. So just before we close off on the non-prime, so at least staff's recommendation for non-prime, we'd keep with the 10%, but go with minimum premises size of 100 acres. Okay.
Right.
Now onto prime land. So what's shown here under 1, that's reflective of what staff's original recommendation was, and recapping in our EIR alternative, APAC's recommendation was that it would not be a compatible use on prime land. So in this, and for the general restating the way that the uniform looks at what constitutes prime land, it's generally those lands that have a minimum of 40 acres and up to 99.99 acres. And generally they're either in cultivated agriculture or vineyards or some type of orchard or crop. Grazing lands would not be a compatible use on prime lands. I mean, they qualifying for the commercial ag production requirements. So under the staff recommendation, I was proposing that you could have 10% of the premises or 10 acres, whichever is less, and then starting point at the 40 acre minimum. So we talked about it. We didn't really have a position that we were recommending. I did at least look at other ways some of these larger footprint uses were considered as part of compatible uses. And that if you look at the beginning of section 2, it talks about supportive agricultural uses, and the uniform rules used to have a limit of 5 acres for supportive agricultural uses. So that could be like an agricultural cooler or a large big box winery or something. And so in 2007, when the board were going through the big update of the uniform rules, there was an interest to bump that up for the footprint allowance for ag support uses. And ultimately in that section, it was bumped up to 20 acres, and then the board could also bump it up to 30 acres with certain findings that the use was necessary and beneficial as a regional ag use. And I point that out is that, yes, there was an increase in acknowledging that a footprint of agriculture would be taken out. In that case, those were directly related to agricultural uses. They were for regional ag coolers or on-site agricultural support. And, in this case, we're looking at taking a footprint out on prime land for a use on its own is not related to agriculture. It's a societal value and use and creating more energy supply and other things, but you could argue that it's not necessarily different than some other non-agricultural use that you may want to put on agricultural contracted lands. So I think that sort of was part of the conversation of the original EIR alternative that APAC recommended, at least that it wouldn't be a compatible use on contracted lands. It's like one degree of separation beyond just larger regional serving footprint ag structures. But we wanted to affirm, as we showed earlier in section B, that taking land, whether it be prime or non-prime, out of production that for supporting on-site agriculture operations for solar operations would be compatible. So we wanted to support, in that case, it was a relationship to taking land out of production that directly supports an ag operation. So that are just some of the, at least, background for the consideration. With the flexibility, so even as presented now and as supported in 3 that we talked about, they're still going to need to meet their commercial ag production requirements. And I forgot that was one of the additions that the board did add. So when they did ramp up the footprint allowances for the agricultural support facilities, they still had to meet the commercial ag production requirements. And so at least that will be a value, on a prime contract. They first still need to meet that, and then they could potentially take out 10 acres if it was 100 acre or 99 acre premises. So there would be at least potential for some flexibility to do both. They would need to demonstrate their primary responsibility for the commercial ag production. And if they do that and they have the ability to still meet the location of solar, then those limitations would guide the siting of those uses. So what do you guys think?
If I could ask a question, has anybody looked at the viability of say a 10-acre footprint for a solar operation by the time you pay the cost to get it in, get it connected to a transmission line and so on? Is it even possible to do that and be viable?
I don't know if the team had looked at any of the aspects of the size of operations. So these might not be utility scale. They might be just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have heard from the solar development community that smaller projects have viability in the 10 to 30 acre range. We refer to them as community scale. Generally, they'd be maybe adjacent to a more urban area. But yeah, there is demand for not the huge solar farms that you see like in the Central Valley, but for smaller, more micro-sized projects as well.
Okay. So it would be a real issue with APAC then, in other words, because it could be something people would want to do.
I think by keeping our, that they have to maintain ongoing eligibility, I think that gives us additional protections because they
Okay.
would, yeah. You're not saying that, that the solar, that you got to remember that part too. And I think that gives me comfort. Not me personally, but I think it upholds the uniform rules requirements, and I think it maintains integrity of the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we did finally find the right figure that I was thinking of and have emailed it to Teresa. Teresa, I think you got an email from Whitney. Yeah. Turns out it's not in our EIR. It was in, no, it's not that one. It's in the county's energy assurance plan. Yes. If you scroll down, I think there's a key maybe, but yeah. So it just shows like the existing transmission lines. It actually does show substations. So you can see like the squares are the substations. So largely along the south coast for SCE, and then kind of sprinkled around, mostly around the more urban areas for the PG&E. But you see that one like out in Cuyama, that's partly why the Cuyama project is cited where it is cited, because of its location. And then you can see the little transmission lines that they connected to out to Kern. I think that's to Kern Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it does show that there's not this vast network of transmission lines that are easily tied into. We did actually explore a project alternative that would basically limit solar to only within a certain proximity from the existing distribution network, but we discarded or removed that alternative from consideration just because we didn't want to sort of limit ourselves to the current distribution network and not provide opportunities in case the infrastructure changes over time.
Thank you for providing that. Any questions from committee members on that?
Nope.
No.
It's interesting to see, though.
It is.
Yeah, Teresa, if you can go back to the. Oh, or do I need to reshare? Sorry. So I guess the one other point, and I think it's just a reality of the challenges of maintaining ag operations primarily on individual, non kind of corporate level, and then the interest we're seeing a lot of the proposals for cumulative uses on ag land and contracted land. So obviously we have the adopted AEO uses. So in addition, so those are additional potential footprints that are uses that are going to be cited, potential utility or solar operations that could be additional footprints on contracted land. It's likely once the recreation master plan and those proposed uses, there's going to be other additional potential uses and considerations of whether or not those are compatible on contracted land. And so I think it's the more and more, and there's obviously values to pursue those uses, but again, on contracted land where you're under contract for the principal production of agricultural commodities, I don't know that we have the tools on an ongoing basis, because there are landowners that may want to potentially do a lot of these stacking uses at some point in time. And I don't think we have in the uniform rules clear guidance to say at what point, if they've taken advantage of several of these uses and now the third one comes in line, it becomes more and more challenging if to evaluate whether or not that, the cumulative effects of these uses on that contract. I mean, we do somewhat have that, stop back of they first have to meet the principal production requirements, and I think that's the strongest thing that we have. But as we know, even there's been some interpretations of what that means, and so. So again, I guess for flexibility, I think we do have some tools that we emphasize and restating here, particularly in 3, that, and we've always relied upon that as being the key requirement for contract holders to comply with is their commercial ag production requirements. That I think we could, at least recommend similar to what staff was for prime land as a starting point. I think it's sort of, again, on that case-by-case basis, we can look at the circumstances. And again, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it to Stephanie, but an example of, I think the lands that are truly in, are cultivated agriculture, that's their business plan. They maximize the land to do those uses. And the example of even, there's a need for ag employee dwellings, but the challenge to try to take some land out of production to put, particularly on those highly productive cultivated lands, we don't see that. We don't see landowners building ag employee housing, even though it's greatly needed on those types of lands, and nor even just individual residences. Their business plan is to maximize those areas for cultivation, and so I don't think we're going to see in those areas, other than maybe just the ag solar operations to support ongoing ag, because we heard that from the AAC, even that, with these new mandates coming down for electrifying ag vehicles and equipment and overall, and to provide infrastructure on site to charge those, and maybe there's solar to help power that. We want to support that. And so that's likely that we'll see, but maybe not on the off-site solar facilities. So at least I would be okay with supporting staff's proposal for number 1, if I'd like to hear your comments.
Yeah, no, hearing everything you've said, I think that I would agree with you, accepting their proposal for number 1.
Alex?
I agree.
Royce, your thoughts?
And I would agree too.
Okay. I think and we'll quickly go over the other sections, but I wanted to at least provide an opportunity, since those are the 2 main issues of sort of the allowances on prime and non-prime. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak, particularly on any of the issues, but any positions or comments on those suggested changes?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay, great. And then just since we're kind of in this same section, oops. Oh.
Oh, there was Susan.
Okay, there we go.
If staff, the team looked at all like putting up a ton of panels that are flat, non-permeable surfaces in like flat land areas, acres and acres, which has completely changed the, yeah, the hydrology. And these are areas that, may tend to flood or that I just can't see a ton of these coming into, think about Santa Maria lands, that are very productive, very flat. That's where a lot of ag is. I saw some of those transition lines and the substations in there, but putting up a ton of panels and just making that water where that water would just sheet off and,
Yeah, projects would have to be designed to address drainage issues and
yeah.
So that's something that would have to be accommodated into their design to ensure that there's no flood hazard created.
Yeah, and they're right next to the other neighbor and they just farm, right up next to each other. And I just can't picture that being, at least that area.
Yeah, I think they'll have to look at those considerations on a case-by-case basis. So just quickly going through what's shown here in strike through, that was originally part of staff's recommendation. We just moved that statement of that the solar energy footprint shall be one contiguous consolidated area. It was moved into under B here. And so we just moved it and combined it with some of the other proposed language that staff had included that we supported. We also supported retaining staff suggestion that a land restoration remediation plan is prepared for the system to return to the original agricultural values after the lifespan of the project. I think separately we had previously at least suggested staff also take a look at in it similar type of bonding requirements for these. I know a lot of large infrastructure energy projects often have a bonding requirement for the end of life. And since these could be potentially 20 to 30 years or more, just to have those bonding requirements in place would provide some level of protection. So that was just a reminder of a suggestion. So those are the main changes, at least for that section. And then quickly I can go through just the other main thing that we did support, and I think we continue to support, we didn't recommend any changes, was just in Rule 6, where staff had added some language to the rescission section. And this was to add the reference to the solar use easement process that is available through the state. As we recall, this is sort of akin to a lesser version of cancellation. So if they can requalify for the solar use easement and get that applied, and it basically puts it into solar use as an approved use, and they don't have to pay the full cancellation. It's of 12%. It's a 6.5% valuation. The other thing that we noted was that because of the government code requirements, they're very limited in terms of the lands that might qualify for solar use agreement, and often it's for those lands that are not designated prime or important farmland in terms of the state designations. Also lands that you have to demonstrate that it really doesn't have, either from water or other soil conditions, it's constrained from ag development. And so it's likely that the solar use easement would have limited application, but we supported that, adding that to the section. And then quickly just going up kind of the top of the changes, there were some clarifying, at least from staff or the subcommittee suggestions. And maybe Stephanie can help me as we go through that. So was there anything in the definition section? Oh yeah, there was a proposal to add a definition of compatible use. it wasn't a big deal, but at least the recommendation was we felt that it wasn't really necessary. We had in the section some information on compatible use. So just wanted.
Just wasn't already in there, and it seemed like didn't seem like the right time to add it in. There's so many things that are compatible, but just to put this in as compatible seemed like it stood out. Didn't seem necessary.
So that was one suggestion. And then also in the definition of development envelope, there was a staff had recommended adding some language to give a specific example that portions of a solar energy system facility for serving the residential use would be counted towards that. And it was sort of like there's a lot of kind of the same line. It was, I think, thinking is that it wasn't necessary to add just that specific example as one thing that would count towards the development envelope, because there could be other things that we would give as an example. So our suggestion was just essentially to leave the existing development envelope definition as is. And I think the last section was in the beginning of the compatible use section. Oh, we did add, so this is on super prime section of our uniform rules, where we talk about what counts towards the development envelope, and the existing language, it gives examples on super prime, which is uniquely different, that new ag employee dwellings, other ag support structures, they can be sited remotely, but they still count towards the non-ag development envelope allowances. And so in 2-9, we had already supported that the solar for offsite was not compatible on super prime, but if it was solar for supporting on-site ag, it could be found compatible. And so our suggestion was to add that language as an example, that if similar to how we treat other ag accessory structures on super prime, that those that are solar that are supporting on-site ag also be an example that it could be cited separately but count towards a non-ag development envelope. Whether or not we need to expressly state that or just deal with that on a case-by-case basis, I guess it's up to the committee. We already have experience knowing that that's already a challenge to when we start adding the ag accessory structure.
That would likely come up.
And it would likely come up. So we wanted to add it as a talking point to see, do we want to include it or just deal with it on a case-by-case basis? That would come up either way.
My suggestion would be to include it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Include it just to maintain
just being consistent.
Consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You okay with that, Alex?
Yes.
Okay.
And did we add anything under open space or recreation? Did we also, or was that already added by staff?
It was added by staff.
Okay.
We just supported that. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, just so we don't lose that thought, and we can cover it at the end, but uniform rule 3 and 4 for open space contracts and recreation contracts, staff added language and we supported that the solar facilities would not be deemed to be a compatible use for those contracts, for open space contracts or for recreation contracts. And then the last main change was that at the beginning of the compatibility guidelines, the staff team recommendation was to add sort of a prelude, talking about under the government code, the compatibility guidelines as they relate to compatible uses. And I guess our thought was this fell into that similar category, that it wasn't necessary. Some of the same in a more layperson's term of the relationship between the Williamson Act and the board's ability to look at other incidental uses on ag are already talked about up here in these paragraphs. And so we felt that it wasn't necessary to include this paragraph in addition to what we already had.
I agree.
Okay, we'll leave that. So I think that's all the changes. So kind of recapping in general, the APAC appears to concur with all of the other sort of ancillary changes that were shown here in terms of what we felt was sort of beyond the scope. And then as we talked about in Rule 2-9, we kind of already talked about the prime and non-prime being the main changes that we were supportive of, being more flexible for the prime, supporting staff's recommendation, and then mostly supporting on non-prime, but keeping the 10% rather than 15%. Any other things that we missed? I guess maybe one more time if there's any other public comments. I don't think anybody's still here, but just offering the opportunity if there's any public comments on the rest of the remainder conversation that we had on the suggested amendments.
So we do not have any public comment.
Okay, great.
But we do have Whitney who has raised her hand.
Oh, yes.
Hi.
Whitney.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I did have a question, and I hope this is a good time to bring it up, kind of circling back around to agrivoltaics and whether APAC was intending to weigh in on whether agrivoltaics is a compatible use both for off-site and or on-site. I just noticed that on page 34 under C1, I think you struck agrivoltaics in the main kind of title text there on page 34. And I just wanted to kind of get clarification on if that was intentional and speak to if you guys were kind of weighing in on the compatibility. And I know you have the commercial production requirements around agrivoltaics, which you'll evaluate on a case-by-case basis. But I didn't know if you guys were kind of speaking to the compatibility issue for on-site versus off-site energy production use.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Thanks, Whitney, for raising that. It was, I think, intentional, not to, it kind of goes back to the emerging concept of agrivoltaics. And we wanted to provide the flexibility for that. So that's why we, at least in the section for the commercial ag production requirements, we added that on a case-by-case basis, but we didn't want to overtly say, yes, it's compatible in all cases. And that's why we just struck it through the title here. They could propose that use or not, and we could look at it from the uniform rules perspective on a case-by-case basis, but we didn't feel comfortable including it as an express compatible use on its face value.
So again,
that weighed into this section.
So essentially, it would just be treated like any other solar energy facility.
I mean, in terms of this section is going to lay out the footprint and the percentage allowances, and then it still also has, you have to look at the commercial ag production requirements, and so.
So you're saying that it's not, agrivoltaics is not always compatible, and it sometimes would go, the committee should have the discretion to say whether or not it is compatible. As opposed, and then just trying to.
I think it would be subject to the same like footprint limitations, the 10% as any other solar energy facility, right?
Yeah. I mean,
and it's just, the question will become, are they able to count the land underneath the facility,
then rely upon the other sections
towards their production requirements?
I'm trying to understand like what's the benefit of saying it's not, why would it not be compatible? I'm trying to get at that part, like why would it not be a compatible use? But I understand the part about calculation, like why you wouldn't want that necessarily to calculate
I
or the
think by
production.
not having it, it's focusing on the footprint and the solar facility as a use and the conditions that it can be compatible. Agrivoltaics is a concept in terms of the surrounding agricultural uses itself. And so at least my thinking is that let the other provisions that focus on agrivoltaics as an agricultural use, evaluate that on a case-by-case basis for its purpose, and not to correlate the agrivoltaics in this section. Because they could do it if they want, or they don't, and we'll still be able to look at that on a case-by-case basis with the rules that deal with agricultural commodities.
I guess I thought the question that was proposed to us today, was it asking that could they do the agrivoltaics if they're just trying to have on-site utility facility, like is that what the question was? I thought that that's what was being asked of us today.
Yeah, I guess clarification on if your intention is to allow it for on-site
Yeah,
and
for
off-site
on-site.
use.
And on-site is, my understanding is the on-site would just be, it's not really this is, the proposal here is more for commercial off-site, right?
C is, and B.
Oh, yeah, there's different
I
tiers.
think that's
Oh, yeah.
argument to not have this in the title is that you still then can look at, if it was solely, B is to support solar for on-site. And if they want to do agrivoltaics with that, we would still have the ability to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
But
by striking it from this title, which would probably better align with it, still have the ability to look at those on a.
So for the on-site solar, that's like a different level. It's one of the.
That's this one, B
A
here.
or B.
That we added that language to clarify that, yes, it could be found to be compatible use.
But I'm just thinking back to this, the presentation that was provided to us, last month, it had the different tiers. Oh yeah, okay, the proposed solar permit tiering, so like, I guess the ones that are for the on-site, that's large scale, small ground mounted and all that, they could still have that, but we're not going to get into the agrivoltaics, right? These are really small.
Yeah, under the tiers, we're not gonna really discern whether it's agrivoltaic or not. It's
Yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't come into play.
But nothing that we're saying in that one section has to do with that. That's all like much larger utility scale.
C1 is,
Yeah.
primarily for you're producing to send it off-site.
Yes. Okay.
That.
Does that answer the question that you're asking, Whitney?
Yeah, I'm much clearer. Thank you.
Okay.
I know we're almost wrapping up here, but I know that Teresa, is there a meeting that we need to wrap up for right after this?
I know that there were still awaiting quorum, but he hasn't confirmed. So for now, yes.
But yeah. Okay. So we're close to wrapping up anyhow.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you for that, Whitney. Any other comments or questions from staff or committee members?
No.
Not for me, no.
Okay, great. So, and I've been writing all of the changes down as well, and I'll work to get a version of the updated Apex recommendation, and that'll be part of the minutes that we'll forward to staff. But I will make a motion that APAC recommend the proposed uniform rule amendments changes as discussed at today's hearing, and that those amendments be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration as amendments to the uniform rules.
Second that motion.
Then we'll do roll call. Sergio Ricardo,
Aye.
Stephanie Stark,
Aye.
David Lackey,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and then Royce Larson.
Aye.
And the vote carries 5-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you to staff for being here to help with the discussion. Thank you, Whitney, for being available as well. Yeah, and we'll track this through the process, and we'll continue to report back to APAC on how it proceeds both through the Planning Commission as the ordinance and to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
I'm
coming.
glad our two options are now much closer.
We're pretty close.
Aligned, so that'll make the decision making a lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you. And then just remaining business to wrap up. As far as just the APAC discussion, we just wanted to confirm for our meeting in February, we had previously agreed to move it to from Thursday to Friday, February 13th. And okay, it is on the agenda now. So it's going to be at the Ag Commissioner's office on Camino del Remedio, and our starting time is 1:30. So did we confirm that the meeting room is still available, Stephanie?
I'm just looking right now.
Okay, so while you do that, I'll just ask, are there any reports from committee members? I know, I'll go to Sergio.
Yep. I'll start with the recordings over the month of December. There were 3 documents that pertain to ag preserves, 2 non-renewals, and those are the county initiated non-renewals for the Ballard Ranch.
Okay.
Those were recorded. And there was also a new contract that was recorded that was for, I don't remember what the name was on that one. Edison, I think it's the name of the owner. I think it was more of a like a replacement contract, not like a brand new. So
was that the
that was the old
Mama Edison one?
Yeah, the Mama Edison that used to be. It was for a little short period of time. It was cannabis, and now they're going back to equestrian.
Okay.
So those 3 documents recorded in December, and so that's that. My other report is we are in the process of putting together all the letters, all the questionnaires, the survey, and our proposal is to, our projected date to mail those is December 30th. We will be mailing about 20,320 letters by January 30th, and that's the number of the contracts. That includes conservation.
What was the number 13?
1,320.
Yeah, and I was talking to Sergio about this earlier, and since I'm attending the Agriculture Advisory Committee meeting this afternoon, on behalf of Planning and Development, I was going to provide that to the members there, and they can report that to all of their commodity groups and help to spread the word. And then I was going to just also give them Sergio's contact information if they need to get more information.
Just another thought too, we have a newsletter we do every quarter in our department, and if you want to do a little blip with some kind of link, or we're happy to put that in our newsletter.
Just thank you, Sergio. Just a quick report, and it was more just of I want to follow up on it, but I don't know if the Ag Commissioner's office heard it as well. that I guess there's a new state law starting January 1st regarding requiring maintenance of vineyard properties. Just because with declining ag operations, and some people may be just letting them go fallow, and the concern that they may be attractive to diseases, to adjacent ongoing operations. There's a law that requires those landowners to maintain them. And so it was interesting. I'll follow up when I hear more about it, but I also wanted to let Stephanie know and whether or not the ag commissioner had heard that as well.
Yeah, it's called, I think it's AB 732. It passed, and that was, I think, put forward by, I think it was Fresno County. So in the past, when there is a pest that is not being addressed on a property, it's in the Food and Ag Code that I believe the Ag Commissioner's Office has the ability to go through a abatement process, but it's quite lengthy and it's not really commonly used. But this would make that process a little bit easier, and we've had a few discussions internally about it. And one of the part of the code, we could talk more about it next time, but it references that all necessary or all measures have been taken, or reasonable measures have been taken. So it's kind of like, well, what does that mean? So, but one of the most common problems is like when veg crops are being grown in like the North County, and they harvest and leave, they don't always burn down those crops. And so it becomes a great place for pests, particularly ligas, that hop onto the adjacent strawberries. So we have a lot of strawberries next to veg crops in Santa Maria. So, but we can talk about it more. Yeah, but thank you for bringing that up.
Any other reports from committee members?
Not a report necessarily, but I did want to find out a little bit more about the any reaching out that we do to landowners when they're on an upcoming agenda.
Thanks. And I think I think maybe we'll put that on as an APAC discussion item, and then I can touch base with Teresa and then we can kind of get some information for the committee of kind of what we do now, and maybe the areas where we can improve our noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll put that on our February agenda as an APAC discussion. All right, great. Real quick, just do we have that 1:30?
Sorry, yes, I did confirm that.
Okay, great. So just to reconfirm, our February meeting will be on Friday, February 13th, starting at 1:30 p.m. at the Ag Commissioner's Office, 263 Camino del Remedio in Santa Barbara.
So make that change here.
Is that in Santa Barbara or Santa Maria?
Santa Barbara. So that's all just
Okay.
over at the Calle Real campus, but we'll still
Yeah.
have the option of remote at the Foster Road office as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you could tune in there to Foster Road, but it's off the like Turnpike, El Sueño off ramp, so it's closer to Goleta.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if I can go to Santa Maria, I'll do that.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, thank you, everyone. So with that, we'll adjourn today's meeting at 12:10. Thank you.
Thank you.